3 hours. That's how long my family left me sitting alone at Le Bernardin on Christmas Eve, surrounded by Manhattan's elite, while waiters kept asking if I was still waiting for my party. When they finally arrived with their business friends, my stepfather's first words weren't an apology. Instead, he announced to everyone, "See? I told you she'd still be here, waiting like a faithful pet." The entire table erupted in laughter. My brother added his own joke. My sister filmed it for her Instagram stories. In that moment, sitting in that 3 Michelin-star restaurant, I realized something. They didn't invite me to dinner. They invited me to be dinner, the entertainment for their friends. I'm Wanda Howard, 32 years old, and what happened next changed everything. Because while they were laughing, I was quietly transferring files that would destroy their empire. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. To understand what happened that night, you need to know about the Howard family. My stepfather Richard built Howard Industries from nothing into a $500 million empire. He married my mother when I was 17, and when she died 5 years later, I thought he'd send me away. Instead, he kept me around, not out of love, but as a reminder of his charity. "You should be grateful," he'd say at every family gathering. Not many men would keep their wife's baggage around. I earned my MBA from Wharton, graduating summa cum laude. I brought innovative strategies to Howard Industries that increased revenue by 30%. But at every board meeting, Richard introduced me the same way. "This is Wanda, my late wife's daughter. We keep her around. It's what family does for charity cases." My stepbrother Marcus, 2 years younger but Richard's real son, claimed every successful project as his own. The Singapore expansion I spent 6 months developing? Marcus presented it to the board while I sat silent in the corner, taking notes like a secretary. My stepsister Stephanie built her influencer career on the rich girl aesthetic, using family money and connections. She had 2 million followers who watched her flaunt designer bags and exotic vacations. Behind the camera, she treated me like hired help. "Wanda, hold my phone. Wanda, get my coffee. Wanda, you're in the shot. Move." 15 years in this family, and I still ate at the kids' table during holidays. 15 years of being told I lacked the Howard DNA for business. 15 years of swallowing my pride because I believed that family, even chosen family, meant something. I was about to learn exactly what I meant to them. The pattern was always the same. Every achievement I earned became evidence of my inadequacy. When I landed the Morrison Group contract worth $12 million, Marcus announced at the quarterly meeting, I had to step in and save Wanda's amateur pitch. Thank God I was there. The board members nodded sympathetically while I sat there, my presentation slides still on my laptop, unused. "You're lucky we even keep you around," Marcus said afterward, loud enough for the entire executive floor to hear. "Real family wouldn't need this much hand-holding." Stephanie's cruelty was more public. Last month, she hosted a charity gala for 500 guests. I'd coordinated the entire event: vendors, scheduling, permits. When the mayor complimented the organization, Stephanie laughed. "Oh, Wanda helped a little. We give her simple tasks to make her feel included. It's important to be kind to those less fortunate." The room laughed politely. I smiled and excused myself to the bathroom, where I stood in a stall, shaking with rage I couldn't express. Richard's contempt was the most calculated. During a CNBC interview about successful family businesses, the reporter asked about succession planning. "My son Marcus has the vision," Richard said. "My daughter Stephanie has the charisma. As for Wanda—" He paused, that practiced pause he used in negotiations. "Well, not everyone is built for leadership. She tries, bless her heart." The interviewer looked uncomfortable. "But isn't she your Director of Strategic Development?" "A courtesy title," Richard smiled. "We believe in giving everyone a chance, even if they'll never quite measure up." That interview had 3 million views. The comments section was brutal, but what hurt most was the family group chat afterward. Marcus shared the link with laughing emojis. Stephanie added, "Dad really said bless her heart on national TV." No one asked how I felt. December 20th, 4 days before Christmas Eve. The email arrived at exactly 9 a.m. Family meeting regarding estate planning. December 24th, 7 p.m., Le Bernardin. Attendance mandatory. Richard. My hands trembled as I read it. Estate planning meant the will. The will meant my mother's assets, $50 million she'd left in trust, requiring Richard's signature as executor to release. For 15 years, he'd held that money hostage, promising to sign when the time was right. But there was more at stake than money. Before she died, Eleanor Whitman, the company's former CFO and my secret mentor, had transferred something invaluable to me: 15% of Howard Industries shares through a shell company. The transfer was legal, bulletproof, but hidden. If Richard discovered it before I was ready, he could make my life hell through corporate warfare. One signature from Richard could erase my entire future, I whispered to my reflection that morning. The email had a postscript I almost missed. Bring documentation of your contributions to the family enterprise. My contributions. I pulled out the folder I'd been maintaining for 5 years. Every contract I'd negotiated, every strategy I'd developed, every dollar I'd earned for Howard Industries, all meticulously documented. Eleanor had taught me well. Keep receipts, especially with family, especially with Richard. But would it be enough? The will had a clause Richard loved to quote: distribution contingent upon maintaining family harmony. He'd defined harmony as obedience, as silence, as accepting whatever scraps they threw me. I opened my laptop and saw another email, this one encrypted, from James Mitchell, CEO of Quantum Tech. The subject line made my heart race. Final offer. Response required by December 26th. $50 million. Chief Strategy Officer. A new life. If I could survive 4 more days, I spent the next 3 days preparing for war while pretending everything was normal. In my apartment, I arranged documents like a general planning a battle. The contribution folder grew to 300 pages. Contracts, emails, financial projections showing my strategies had generated over $200 million in revenue. I made 3 copies, stored one in a safety deposit box, uploaded one to a secure cloud, and kept one with me. Eleanor's voice echoed in my memory from our last conversation before she died. Richard will try to erase you from the company history. Don't let him. Document everything. And Wanda? She'd gripped my hand with surprising strength. I've left you something. Insurance. It's in my old office safe. The combination is your mother's birthday. Use it when they cross the final line. I'd found the USB drive exactly where she said. When I plugged it in, my blood ran cold. Audio recordings, financial documents, evidence that could destroy Richard Howard. But I wasn't ready to be a destroyer. Not yet. I still believed I could earn my place through merit. December 23rd. I opened the Quantum Tech offer again. The terms were extraordinary. 2.5 million base salary, stock options potentially worth hundreds of millions, full autonomy to build their AI strategy division. They wanted my answer by December 26th, 2 days after the family meeting. James Mitchell had been blunt in our last call. Wanda, you're brilliant, but you have Stockholm Syndrome with that family. They'll never see your worth. We do, but this offer won't wait forever. I stared at the folder marked Insurance on my laptop desktop. Inside were Eleanor's files, waiting like a loaded weapon. Hope for the best, I whispered Eleanor's words. Prepare for war. Tomorrow would decide everything. If you've ever been the family scapegoat, you know exactly why I kept those receipts. The gaslighting, the public humiliation, the constant reminder that you're lucky to be included. It all builds up. But what would you do if you had proof of something that could bring them down? Let me know in the comments. And please hit that subscribe button if you want to hear how this ends. December 24th, Christmas Eve. I arrived at Le Bernardin at exactly 7 p.m. The maitre d' recognized me immediately. Ms. Howard, your family's table is ready. The private dining area as requested. I wore my best dress. A black Armani I'd bought with my own money, not family credit cards. The restaurant gleamed with holiday decorations, full of Manhattan's elite celebrating Christmas Eve in 3 Michelin star style. Our table, set for 8, commanded a view of the entire dining room. 7:15, no sign of them. I ordered sparkling water and checked my phone. Nothing. 7:30. The waiter approached, his expression professionally neutral but his eyes sympathetic. "Should we hold the table, Miss Howard? Perhaps your party is delayed in traffic?" "They'll be here," I said, though my stomach was already nodding. 8 o'clock. I tried calling Richard, straight to voicemail. Marcus, same. Stephanie. Her phone rang, but she didn't answer. 8:30. The waiter returned, this time with the sommelier. "Ma'am, the kitchen closes at 10. Would you like to order an appetizer while you wait?" Other diners were starting to notice. I recognized several Howard Industries board members at nearby tables. Patricia Morrison from the Times was 3 tables over, dining with her husband. They all saw me sitting alone at a table for 8, waiting. 8:45. My phone buzzed, a text from Stephanie. "Almost there! Dad's bringing friends!" The devil emoji should have been my warning, but I was still naive enough to feel relief that they were coming at all. I ordered a $500 bottle of Chablis. If they wanted to humiliate me, I'd make them pay for the privilege. "Ma'am, our kitchen closes at 10, the waiter reminded me, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. 9 p.m. I finally understood what was happening. Stephanie's Instagram story appeared on my phone, posted from Pravda, a bar 6 blocks away. There she was, laughing with Marcus, Richard, and 5 men in expensive suits I recognized as Howard Industries' key investors. The caption, "Pre-gaming before dinner." The next story showed Marcus holding up his phone, zooming in on something. The comments were already rolling in. I clicked to see what he was filming. It was me. Someone at Les Bernardins was live-streaming me sitting alone, and Marcus was re-sharing it. His comment, "Making the charity case wait." My face burned. The waiter approached again, and I saw pity in his eyes. Every elite diner in this restaurant could see what was happening. The Howard family's charity case, sitting alone on Christmas Eve, too pathetic to leave. I opened my laptop and pulled up the folder labeled Insurance. Inside were dozens of files Eleanor had collected over the years. One stood out. Board meeting audio, December 15th, 2024. I put in my earbuds and listened. Richard's voice, clear as day. "The tax situation is handled. We've moved $8 million through the Cayman accounts. The IRS will never find it. Marcus knows, but keep it from Stephanie. She can't keep her mouth shut." Eleanor had been recording from her hospital bed, dialed into the board meeting. They thought she was too sick to attend. I closed the laptop and made a decision. If they wanted a show, I'd give them one they'd never forget. I ordered another bottle of wine, the most expensive Burgundy on the menu, $3,000. Then I smiled at the waiter. "They'll be here soon. Important people always make an entrance." He nodded, but I caught him glancing at his watch. While I waited, I thought about Eleanor Whitman and the day she changed my life. 6 months before she died, she'd called me to her office. Cancer had taken 40 pounds off her frame, but her mind was sharp as ever. "Wanda, I need to tell you something about Richard." She'd locked the door, activated a white noise machine. "I've been with this company 20 years. I've seen what he does to people who threaten him. You threaten him." "I'm not a threat. He barely acknowledges I exist." "Exactly. You're smart, capable, and have a legitimate claim to your mother's assets. That makes you dangerous." She'd pulled out a USB drive. "This is your insurance policy. Everything Richard doesn't want exposed is on here." "What kind of everything?" "Tax fraud, embezzlement, using company funds for personal expenses, mistresses, gambling debts, bribes to city officials, 8 million in hidden offshore accounts, all documented, all recorded." I'd stared at the small device. "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because he's going to come for you eventually. When he does, you'll need leverage." She'd pressed it into my hand. The audio from December 15th's board meeting is particularly damning. He admitted to tax fraud thinking I wasn't listening. Eleanor, this is... Your mother saved my daughter's life once. Did you know that? Paid for her cancer treatment when I couldn't afford it. I owe her daughter protection. She'd squeezed my hand. Use this when they cross the final line. You'll know when that is. Now, sitting alone in Le Bernardin, I knew. The final line wasn't just making me wait. It was making me wait publicly, turning my humiliation into entertainment. I opened my phone and began composing an email I hoped I'd never have to send. 9:45 p.m. While New York's elite watched me sit alone, my phone buzzed with an email that changed everything. James Mitchell from Quantum Tech, marked urgent. Wanda, the board met tonight. Unanimous approval. $50 million for the AI platform development. But we need you leading it. Official offer attached. Starting salary, 2.5 N, plus equity. Estimated value at IPO, 200 $200 minimum. Start date, January 2nd. We need your answer by midnight, December 26th. I read the contract on my phone, keeping my face neutral. Chief Strategy Officer, corner office, team of 200. Everything Howard Industries had denied me. But there was something else that mattered more. I opened my investment portfolio, checking the holdings Eleanor had transferred to me through her shell company, Whitman Holdings LLC. 15% of Howard Industries, currently worth $75 million. The other shareholders didn't know. Richard didn't know. The shares were held in trust, invisible until activated. Eleanor had been brilliant. She'd structured it so the transfer happened gradually over 5 years, small enough percentages to avoid SEC reporting requirements. I pulled up the shareholder registry. Richard, 35%, Marcus, 10%, Stephanie, 5%, various investors, 35%. And hidden in that last category, split between 3 shell companies, my 15%. A text from my lawyer, David Chen. Voting rights documentation ready whenever you need it. BTW, Thomas Mitchell from Mitchell Ventures is asking about you. Says he's dining at Le Bernardin tonight? I glanced around the restaurant. 3 tables over, in a corner booth, sat Thomas Mitchell, James's brother and one of Howard Industries' largest investors with 12% ownership. He caught my eye and raised his wine glass slightly. A greeting, or maybe acknowledgement. If Thomas and I combined our shares, we'd have 27%. Not enough to control, but enough to cause serious problems for Richard. 9:55 p.m. The pieces were falling into place in ways Richard couldn't imagine. I pulled up the full shareholder breakdown on my laptop, cross-referencing it with Eleanor's notes. There was Patricia Patterson, sitting 4 tables away with her husband. She owned 8% through her family trust. She'd always been coldly polite to Richard, professional, but distant. Eleanor's notes explained why. Patricia knows about Richard's first wife, the real story. Then there was Michael Torres, who owned 6%. He wasn't here tonight, but Eleanor had documented his frustration with Richard's leadership. Wants Richard out, but needs allies. Combined, Thomas Mitchell, Patricia Patterson, Michael Torres and I would have 41%. Still not enough for a takeover, but Eleanor had thought of that too. Her notes detailed a poison pill in the company bylaws. In the event of criminal conviction of the CEO, voting rights temporarily transfer to the largest non-family shareholder group. If Richard was convicted of tax fraud, our 41% would become the controlling vote. I checked the restaurant again. Patricia Patterson was definitely watching me now, her expression thoughtful. The maitre d' had just whispered something to her, probably explaining that I'd been waiting alone for 3 hours. My phone lit up with another Stephanie Instagram story. This time, the whole group was in a limo, champagne glasses raised. Richard was speaking to the camera. Let's see if our little charity case is still waiting. I bet you all dinner she's still sitting there like a faithful dog. The comments were already flooding in, but mixed with the laughing emojis were other responses. This is cruel. Why would you do this to family? Disgusting behavior. One comment caught my eye from a verified account. Patricia Patterson. Interesting leadership style, Richard. The Emperor didn't know it yet, but he was already naked. The whole city was starting to see it. 10 p.m. They arrived like conquering heroes walking into their own triumph. Richard led the parade, his silver hair perfectly styled, his $10,000 suit impeccable. Behind him, Marcus strutted with the confidence of an heir apparent. Stephanie had her phone out, live streaming everything. 5 men in suits followed. Howard Industries' biggest investors, men who controlled millions and expected to be entertained tonight. The entire restaurant turned to watch. 3 hours of me sitting alone had become dinner theater, and now the main act had arrived. "See?" Richard's voice boomed across the dining room, designed to carry. "I told you she'd still be here, waiting like a faithful pet." The investors laughed. Marcus added loudly, 3 hours! She really has no self-respect. Stephanie zoomed her camera on my face. "Ladies and gentlemen, I present the Charity Case Chronicles live and in person." They sat down around me, Richard at the head of the table, positioning me at the far end like a child at the adult table. The investors looked uncomfortable but amused, the way people do when they're watching something cruel but don't want to spoil the fun. "Gentlemen," Richard announced, "meet the family disappointment who thinks she deserves inheritance." One of the investors, a younger man named Bradley, shifted uncomfortably. "That's a bit harsh, Richard." "Harsh? Bradley, you don't know what we've dealt with. 15 years of carrying dead weight." Richard pulled out a folder. "But tonight, we're fixing that." Every elite diner in Le Bernardin was watching. Patricia Patterson had actually turned her chair for a better view. The maitre d' stood frozen, clearly unsure whether to intervene. I sat perfectly still, my hands folded, my expression calm. Inside, my heart was racing, but Eleanor had taught me, never let them see you break. That's what they want. Richard slid a thick document across the table. "Sign this, and we'll let you keep your mother's jewelry." I picked it up, reading quickly. "Complete disinheritance. Renouncement of any claim to Howard Industries. Waiver of all rights to my mother's trust. In exchange, her jewelry collection, worth maybe $50,000. "Read it out loud," Marcus said, grinning. "Let everyone hear what you're worth." Richard obliged, his voice carrying across the restaurant. "I, Wanda Howard, acknowledge that I have contributed nothing of value to Howard Industries and renounce all claims to the Howard estate." Stephanie kept filming, adding commentary. "For those just joining, this is what happens when you mistake charity for family." "You should be grateful we're offering anything," Richard continued. "Your mother's jewelry is more than you deserve." One of the investors, an older man named Harrison, frowned. "Richard, is this necessary? It's Christmas Eve." "It's business, Harrison. Sometimes you have to cut dead weight." Richard looked at me. "Well, we don't have all night." Thomas Mitchell had left his table and was standing by the bar, watching intently. Patricia Patterson was typing rapidly on her phone. I recognized the expression. She was texting her business partners. "You want me to sign away $50 million in trust funds," I said quietly, but loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "Plus any claim to the company I helped build, in exchange for jewelry?" "Company you helped build?" Marcus laughed. "You were a secretary with an inflated title. A secretary who increased revenue by 30%. "My strategies increased revenue," Marcus shot back. "Your strategies? Should we review the Singapore expansion documents? The ones with my digital fingerprints all over the metadata?" Richard's face darkened. "Sign the papers, Wanda, or leave with nothing." This was it. The moment that would define everything. 3 hours of humiliation, 15 years of being treated like an outsider, and now they wanted me to sign away my rights while they filmed it for entertainment. But sometimes, the best revenge isn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes, it's as quiet as pressing send on an email. If you've ever had your breaking point moment, drop a comment below. I read through the document slowly, letting the silence build. The restaurant had gone quiet, even the waitstaff frozen in place. "So I get nothing from the company I helped build?" I asked, my voice steady. "You contributed nothing," Richard said flatly. "You're not real family, you never were." Marcus leaned forward. "Mom's jewelry is more than you deserve. Dad's being generous." "Generous." I set the papers down. "Let me make sure I understand. You're asking me to sign away my rights to my mother's $50 million trust, renounce any claim to Howard Industries where I've worked for 15 years, and in return I get jewelry worth $50,000? It's more than someone like you deserves," Stephanie added, still filming. The waiter approached with the check, $3,000 for the wine I'd ordered while waiting. He looked mortified as he set it down. Richard laughed. $3,000? Were you trying to drink away your sorrows?" He pushed the check toward me. "This is your bill. Your last expense on the Howard name." I looked at the check, then at Richard, then at the room full of witnesses. Patricia Patterson had her phone out, recording. Thomas Mitchell had moved closer. Even the maitre d' was watching. I smiled. For the first time all night, I genuinely smiled. "You know what? You're absolutely right. I'm not your family." I pulled out the company credit card Richard had forgotten to cancel, the one linked to my expense account. "I'll take care of the bill." Then I looked directly at Stephanie's camera. "And Richard? You might want to check your phone. I just sent you something important." His phone buzzed, then buzzed again, and again. The Emperor's clothes were about to disappear. I stood up slowly, with the same composure Eleanor had taught me to maintain in board meetings. "Before I sign anything, let me send one quick email." I pulled out my phone, my fingers steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. To IRS, Criminal Division, SEC Enforcement, Howard Industries, Board of Directors, 12 recipients. CC, New York Times. Business Desk, Wall Street Journal, CNBC. Subject, Urgent, Tax Fraud Evidence. Richard Howard, CEO. Howard Industries Attachment. Audio, Board Meeting, Deck 15, 2024. MP3. "What are you doing?" Richard demanded, but his phone was already exploding with notifications. "Eleanor Whitman left me something," I said calmly. "A recording from December 15th's board meeting, the one where you thought she was too sick to dial in." Richard's face went white as he opened the email. His own voice filled the restaurant from his phone speaker. He'd accidentally hit play. "The tax situation is handled. We've moved $8 million through the Cayman accounts. The IRS will never—" He frantically stopped the playback, but it was too late. Every board member was listening to the full recording on their own phones. The investors at our table were backing away from Richard like he was radioactive. That's illegal recording," Marcus stammered. "Actually, it's not," I said. "Eleanor was a board member, authorized to attend all meetings. New York is a one-party consent state." Richard's phone rang. The caller ID showed IRS Criminal Division. He declined the call. It immediately rang again. "You stupid little—" He started to stand, but Thomas Mitchell stepped forward. "Sit down, Richard," Thomas said quietly. "You're done." The entire restaurant was watching. Patricia Patterson was on a call with someone, speaking rapidly. Several other diners were Googling Howard Industries CEO tax fraud. The empire was crumbling, and everyone was watching it happen live. "Oh, and James Mitchell wants me to say hi," I said conversationally. The investors' heads snapped up. James Mitchell was Thomas's brother and CEO of Quantum Tech, Howard Industries' biggest competitor. "What?" Richard's voice cracked. "The Quantum Tech deal. The $50 million AI platform development contract you've been chasing for 2 years?" I pulled up the contract on my phone, showing it to the table. "I signed it yesterday. I start as Chief Strategy Officer on January 2nd. "That was our deal," Richard roared, forgetting we were in public. "I've been negotiating that for 2 years." "No, that was my deal. I pitched it, developed it, and closed it. Just like the Singapore expansion, just like the Morrison Group contract, just like every other success you and Marcus claimed credit for. Thomas Mitchell stood up. Is this true, Richard? You've been taking credit for her work? She's lying, Marcus protested, but his voice was weak. Am I? I turned to Thomas. Check the metadata on any strategic document from the last 5 years. Check who actually wrote the proposals. Check whose credentials were used to log into the systems at 2 a.m. to finish the presentations Marcus took credit for at 9 a.m. Harrison, one of the older investors, was already on his laptop. Jesus Christ, Richard. Her digital fingerprints are on everything. The Singapore expansion, the Morrison deal, the Phoenix merger. $50 million, I continued. That's what my worthless ideas are worth to Quantum Tech, plus $2.5 million a year salary. Stephanie had stopped filming. Her face was pale as she realized her live stream had captured everything. Richard's confession, the tax fraud admission, the revelation that the family success was built on my work. How many viewers do you have right now, Stephanie? I asked. She looked at her phone. Her voice was barely a whisper. 47,000. One more thing, I said, pulling out a folder from my bag. I own 15% of Howard Industries. The table went silent. Richard's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. That's impossible, he managed. I would know about any share transfers. Eleanor Whitman set up a trust before she died. Whitman Holdings LLC. She transferred shares to me over 5 years, keeping each transfer below SEC reporting thresholds. I laid the documents on the table. All completely legal, all notarized, all filed properly. Thomas Mitchell started laughing, actually laughing. Eleanor played you, Richard, even from her deathbed. 15%, I continued, looking at Thomas. Combined with your 12% and Patricia Patterson's 8%, that's 35%. Add Michael Torres's 6%, which I believe he's willing to contribute, and we have 41%. Patricia Patterson had joined us at the table. 41% becomes controlling interest if the CEO is convicted of a felony according to your own bylaws, Richard. Richard's phone was ringing non-stop. The caller ID alternated between IRS Criminal Division, Board Member Williams, and Corporate Lawyer. You planned this, Marcus accused, but he was backing away from his father. No, I said. You planned this. You planned to humiliate me on Christmas Eve in front of New York's elite. You planned to disinherit me while Stephanie broadcast it to the world. I just decided to stop being your victim. A commotion at the restaurant entrance. 2 men in dark suits with badges visible. Mr. Richard Howard? One called out. IRS Criminal Division. We need you to come with us. The entire restaurant was filming now. Every phone was out. Tomorrow's headlines were writing themselves. Stephanie's livestream comment count was exploding. Karma! The charity case just became the boss. Richard Howard is done! I picked up the pen Richard had provided for me to sign my inheritance away. Instead, I signed my name with a flourish on the disinheritance papers. You're right, Richard. I don't need your money. I set the pen down. But I'll take the company. I turned to the waiter who'd been so patient all night. Please charge this bill to Mr. Howard's corporate card, the one on file. Ma'am, that card was declined, he said apologetically. Then use this one. I handed him my Quantum Tech corporate card, already activated. And please book me a first-class ticket to Paris, leaving tonight. I have a new job to celebrate. Richard tried to stand, to leave, but the IRS agents were already there. Mr. Howard, please don't make this difficult. You can't do this, he shouted at me, after everything we've done for you. Done for me? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You mean the constant humiliation? The theft of my work? The 3 hours you left me sitting here tonight for your amusement? Thomas Mitchell was on his phone. Security is here, Richard. My security. They'll escort you out properly. Gentlemen, I addressed the IRS agents, Mr. Howard will need a moment. He just lost everything. Marcus tried to slip away, but Harrison grabbed his arm. Not so fast. You're named in these documents too. The board will want to speak with you. Stephanie was frantically trying to delete her live stream, but her followers were already screen recording everything. Please, she begged me. This will ruin me. My brand partnerships, everything. Your brand was built on humiliating others, I said simply. Maybe it's time for a rebrand. The IRS agents led Richard toward the exit. The entire restaurant watched in silence as the Emperor was escorted out in handcuffs. Richard tried one last power move as the agents paused at the door. This is a misunderstanding. Call my lawyer. Call the mayor. I donate millions to— Sir, please stop talking, one agent advised. Anything you say can and will be used against you. The entire restaurant was on its feet. Patricia Patterson was speaking rapidly to someone on the phone. I caught the words emergency board meeting and interim CEO. You can't do this to family, Marcus shouted at me, his face red with rage and panic. Family? I turned to face him fully. According to you, I was never family. I was the charity case, remember? The faithful pet? Stephanie was sobbing now, her phone showing notification after notification. L'Oreal just terminated my contract. Mercedes wants their car back. Cartier is demanding I return the jewelry from the last campaign. Please, she begged. You have to fix this. You have to tell them it was a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding. You broadcast your cruelty to 47,000 people. Now you're facing consequences. Thomas Mitchell approached me. Ms. Howard, we need to discuss the transition. The board will meet tomorrow morning, even though it's Christmas. Will you attend? I'll be in Paris, I said. But I'll dial in. Patricia has my proxy for any immediate votes. Security had formed a path through the crowd of diners, all filming Richard's perp walk. Someone had already posted it to Twitter with the caption, Howard Industries CEO arrested at Le Bernardin after daughter exposes tax fraud live. Marcus made one last desperate attempt. You need us. You don't know how to run a company. I've been running your part of the company for 5 years, I said. The only thing I don't know how to do is take credit for other people's work. But I'm sure I'll figure it out. By the time my flight took off at 1 a.m., Richard's arrest was trending worldwide. From my first-class seat, I watched the news coverage on my phone. CNN's headline, Howard Industries CEO arrested for tax fraud at exclusive Manhattan restaurant. The video showed Richard being led out in handcuffs while hundreds of New York's elite watched. The financial channels were having a field day. Stock futures indicate Howard Industries will open down 40%, one analyst said. This is a complete meltdown of corporate governance. Fox Business had gotten hold of Stephanie's live stream. They were playing the moment Richard called me a faithful pet on repeat, with commentators discussing toxic corporate culture. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia Patterson. Emergency board meeting confirmed for 8 a.m. Richard terminated effectively immediately. Marcus suspended pending investigation. Vote for interim CEO. Thomas nominated you. I texted back. I work for Quantum Tech now, but I'll help find the right replacement. The New York Times push notification appeared. Howard Industries faces federal investigation after CEO's arrest. Whistleblower daughter, hailed as corporate hero. Whistleblower. Hero. 6 hours ago, I was the family charity case. Another text. This one from James Mitchell. Saw the news. Paris office is ready for you. Enjoy your vacation. You've earned it. See you January 2nd. I pulled up Marcus's LinkedIn. He'd already updated it. Seeking new opportunities. No mention of Howard Industries. His entire executive history had been erased. Stephanie's Instagram had gone private, but the internet never forgets. Someone had created a compilation video. Influencer loses everything after bullying sister goes viral. 10 million views in 3 hours. The captain announced we were reaching cruising altitude. I turned off my phone, reclined my seat, and ordered champagne. For the first time in 15 years, I was free. Stephanie's downfall was swift and brutal, played out in real time across social media. By the time I landed in Paris, her follower count had dropped from 2 million to 500,000. The unfollows were happening so fast that someone created a website tracking the numbers in real time, like a stock ticker in reverse. L'Oréal's statement was corporate speak for disgust. We cannot associate our brand with individuals who promote bullying and cruelty. Mercedes was less subtle. Effective immediately, Ms. Howard's brand ambassador contract is terminated. We've requested the return of all vehicles. Cartier, Dior, Revolve, Fashion Nova, every brand she'd partnered with issued termination notices. The total value of lost contracts, $10 million over the next 2 years. But the internet's revenge was more creative. Someone had found every video where Stephanie flaunted wealth while calling me the charity case. They created a supercut with a counter showing how much money she was losing per second. It went viral on TikTok with 15 million views. Her attempt at an apology video made things worse. Sitting in what was clearly a stripped-down apartment, the designer furniture had been rented, she cried about being caught in a difficult family dynamic. The comments were merciless. You live-streamed your cruelty, and now you're crying about consequences? A gossip blog found her on Zillow looking at studio apartments in Queens. The headline, "From penthouse to pavement, disgraced influencer can't afford Manhattan anymore." Her agency dropped her. Her management team quit. Even her personal assistant posted a tell-all thread about what it was like working for her. She made me return gifts from brands to stores for cash. She charged her friends to attend her parties. Everything was fake. The girl who built her career on humiliating others had become the internet's favorite cautionary tale. January 2nd. I walked into Quantum Tech's headquarters as their new chief strategy officer. The contrast was immediate. At Howard Industries, I'd been hidden in a windowless office in the back. Here, James Mitchell personally showed me to my corner suite on the 50th floor, overlooking Central Park. "Your team is ready to meet you," he said. 200 of the brightest minds in AI development. They've all read your Singapore expansion case study. They're excited. My assistant, a sharp young woman named Claire, had already organized my schedule. "Your first presentation to the board is Thursday. The AI platform prototype review is Friday. Oh, and Forbes wants to interview you about corporate whistleblowing." The salary hit my account that morning, $208,033. My monthly pay before bonuses, more than I'd made in a year at Howard Industries. Meanwhile, Richard's empire was crumbling. The investigation had expanded. The FBI found $30 million in misappropriated funds over 10 years. The board discovered he'd been using company jets for personal trips, billing client dinners that never happened, even charging his mistress's apartment to the company. Marcus was unemployed and unemployable. Every major firm in New York had blacklisted him. Someone leaked an email he'd sent begging for a job at a startup, offering to work for whatever you can pay. They turned him down. I donated $10 million to foster care organizations in Eleanor's name. The press release read, "In honor of Eleanor Whitman, who taught me that family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up for you." Richard saw that from his federal holding cell awaiting trial. His lawyer told me Richard threw his meal tray at the television. From my new office, I could see the Howard Industries building. There was already talk of selling it to cover legal costs. January 5th, 8 a.m. sharp. I dialed into the Howard Industries emergency board meeting from my Quantum Tech office. "First order of business," Thomas Mitchell announced. "Formal removal of Richard Howard as CEO and chairman." The vote was unanimous, 12 votes to 0. Second, removal of Marcus Howard from all positions within the company. Again, unanimous. Patricia Patterson presented the audit findings. In 10 years, Richard and Marcus misappropriated $30 million. The tax fraud alone totals $8 million. The company faces potential fines of $50 million. Motion to pursue full legal action against Richard and Marcus Howard for recovery of stolen funds, Thomas said. Unanimous. I listened as they dismantled everything Richard had built on lies. His name would be removed from the building. his portraits taken down from the boardroom, his legacy erased except as a cautionary tale about corporate corruption. "Ms. Howard," Thomas addressed me, "would you consider selling your shares back to the company?" "Actually, I've already sold them," I said. "This morning to a consortium of employees through an employee ownership trust. They're the ones who actually built this company. They should own it." Silence. Then Patricia started clapping. Others joined in. The sale price was $80 million, fair market value. But I'd structured it so employees could pay over 10 years from company profits. They'd finally own what they'd built. Board Resolution 2025-01 was signed at 8:47 a.m. Richard Howard is permanently banned from any association with Howard Industries. All contracts bearing his signature are under review. A forensic audit of the past decade is authorized. By 9 a.m., it was over. The Howard dynasty had fallen in less than 2 weeks. Richard's empire, built on 30 years of lies and theft, had crumbled in exactly 72 hours from that Christmas Eve dinner. I established my boundaries with surgical precision. First, the legal framework. All communication from any Howard family member had to go through my attorney, David Chen. Direct contact would result in immediate restraining orders. Second, the restraining order against Richard, filed and granted January 7th. He couldn't come within 500 feet of me, my home, or my workplace. The judge, after reviewing the Christmas Eve footage, added a provision preventing him from mentioning me publicly. Third, complete digital separation. I blocked Richard, Marcus, and Stephanie on every platform. Phone numbers, emails, social media. They ceased to exist in my digital world. The family assets were divided by court order. Richard's accounts were frozen pending trial. The family home would be sold to pay legal fees. The cars, the boat, the Hamptons house, all gone to satisfy creditors and fines. I took only what was legally mine, my mother's $50 million trust, finally released, and the $80 million from the share sale. I wanted nothing with Richard's fingerprints on it. When Marcus tried to approach me outside Quantum Tech, security intercepted him. "She doesn't want to see you," they said. He shouted about family and forgiveness until police arrived. Stephanie sent a letter through her lawyer, begging for help with her debts. I had David respond. "Ms. Howard has no legal or ethical obligation to assist. Please do not contact her again." I donated $10 million to establish the Eleanor Whitman Foundation for foster youth and young professionals escaping toxic families. The first scholarship went to a young woman whose family had disowned her for pursuing engineering instead of marriage. "I don't wish them harm," I told James Mitchell when he asked if I felt guilty. "I just wish them gone from my life. And now they are." Clean breaks heal fastest. 6 months later, the transformations were complete. Quantum Tech went public in June. My equity stake, which James had generously granted, was worth $200 million at IPO. I rang the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange, standing where Richard had always dreamed of standing. Richard took a plea deal, 5 years in federal prison, eligible for parole in 3 with good behavior. His lawyer said he aged 10 years and 6 months. He'd tried to write me letters from prison, but they were returned unopened per my instructions. Marcus found work as a junior analyst at a small firm in Detroit, making $60,000 a year. His LinkedIn still showed former VP at Howard Industries, but everyone knew the truth. He'd married a woman who didn't know his history, but the internet never forgets. The wedding photos leaked with comments. "She'll figure out she married a fraud soon enough." Stephanie reinvented herself as a real estate agent in New Jersey suburbs. Her Instagram, under a new name, had 3,000 followers. She posted about humble beginnings and fresh starts, never mentioning her past. Someone always commented, "Aren't you the charity case girl?" before she deleted and blocked them. Howard Industries, under employee ownership, flourished. Stock price recovered and exceeded previous highs. They renamed it Whitman Industries in honor of Eleanor. Her portrait now hung where Richard's used to be. I mentored 5 young professionals that year, all escaping toxic families. We met monthly, sharing strategies for setting boundaries and building independent success. The best revenge, I told them, echoing Eleanor, is a life well lived without them. From my office, I could see the Whitman Industries building. Sometimes I wondered if Richard could see it from his cell. I hoped he could. I learned something that Christmas Eve that changed everything. Your worth isn't determined by family approval. For 15 years, I'd accepted their version of my value. The charity case, the obligation, the faithful pet waiting for scraps of recognition that would never come. I'd believed that if I just worked harder, achieved more, proved myself one more time, they'd finally see me as family. But that night at Le Bernardin taught me the truth. Some people will never see your worth because they benefit from your blindness to it. Richard needed me to feel worthless so he could steal my work. Marcus needed me inferior so he could feel superior. Stephanie needed me as content for her cruelty. My advice to anyone trapped in a toxic family: document everything. Every achievement they steal, every insult they throw, every boundary they cross. Not for revenge, but for reality. When gaslighting makes you question your own worth, evidence reminds you of the truth. Set boundaries like your life depends on it, because it does. The moment I stopped needing their approval was the moment I became free. Now I decide who has access to my life, my time, my energy. Sometimes cutting ties is the greatest act of self-love. I don't hate them, I nothing them. They're characters in a story I no longer tell. Today, I run a $2 billion AI division. I mentor survivors of family abuse. I sleep peacefully, knowing no one can humiliate me at a restaurant because they no longer have a seat at my table. I waited 3 hours that Christmas Eve, but I've been free every moment since. And if you're still waiting for your family's approval, ask yourself, what would happen if you simply stopped waiting and started living? If you've made it this far, you understand that sometimes the only way to win is to stop playing their game entirely. Have you ever had to cut off toxic family? What was your breaking point? Share your story in the comments. You're not alone. And if this resonated with you, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. I share stories of justice and boundary setting every week. Remember, you deserve respect, especially from family.